Hello, I am Meredith and this is Meredith Making Magic, and in this video we are making my dreams come true. I am putting together a Tangled tea party for my 28th birthday party. I love Rapunzel, she is my favorite princess, and I have been dreaming about a Tangled tea party for years, and so it was so exciting to finally bring my vision to life. This is going to be a food prep and decorating video, and then I will show you how the entire party comes together at the end. My favorite pound cake recipe comes from Martha Stewart. It is her vanilla pound cake recipe. On Friday, I started my party prep with making the batter for the pound cake. Pound cake is the cake typically used when making petit fours. Pound cake is an excellent choice for making petit fours because it has a much higher fat content than regular cakes and its texture is more solid. This means you can more easily assemble those tiny cakes. My least favorite part about making petit fours is having to try and cut all of the little tiny squares from a loaf to be the exact same size. So I purchased this silicone square cake mold, and I thought I would try using that to make my petit fours, so I had to do less cutting and math. While my pound cake was baking, I decided to get started on chocolate dipping my marshmallows. I melted some yellow candy melt in the microwave in a silicone cup, and then I tried dipping them with a skewer and shaking off the excess chocolate so I had a nice smooth chocolate coating on my marshmallow. I pulled my pound cakes out of the oven and they looked perfect. The only thing I would change next time is filling the molds slightly fuller. While my pound cake was cooling, I went back to dipping my marshmallows. I decided I didn't love using the skewer, so I switched to this chocolate dipping fork, and it worked a lot more easily. It was a lot easier to get the marshmallow onto the parchment paper and just overall went more smoothly. When looking for desserts and treats to make for my Tangled tea party, I came across the Tangled Eclairs from Disney World and Disneyland. I've never made eclairs before, but I want to try and recreate them at home, so wish me luck. I was so excited to try making the Tangled Eclairs because they look beautiful and they sound delicious. I found some very helpful pictures and descriptions of the Tangled Eclair on Disney Food Blog. This helped me be able to break down the recipe and figure out what elements I needed to make in order to recreate this dessert. According to Disney Food Blog, the Tangled Wall Eclair is topped with white chocolate, whipped cream, sugar flowers, purple cracklin, and a chocolate frying pan. I had no idea what cracklin was, so I found a recipe and discovered that cracklin is a simple cookie-like dough consisting of sugar, butter, flour, and a pinch of salt. It is rolled out, cut, and perched atop piped choux dough. The two are baked together, producing pastry puffs with a crackly appearance, crunchy texture, and buttery sweet bite. I used gel food coloring to dye my cracklin purple, like we see on the Tangled Eclair. While the cracklin was chilling in the fridge, it was time to start making the choux dough for the eclairs. One of the helpful tips I found online was having all of your ingredients measured out and ready to go, because once the dough reaches the right temperatures and consistencies, everything comes together really fast and you don't want to be taking time to look for your ingredients and measure them out. Up until this point, everything was going perfectly. My dough looked exactly as it should. I'm not sure if I added too much eggs or not enough eggs, if I didn't let it cool enough, if it was too warm, but my dough didn't hold its shape very well, and when I did end up baking them, they kind of caved upwards, if that makes sense. They just didn't turn out the way I was hoping to, so I did have to scrap this batch and try again the next day. I was feeling pretty discouraged about how the eclairs turned out, but luckily my petit fours were turning out great. When cutting my petit fours, I liked holding 2 slices together so I could make sure they were the exact same width and height for when I was going to assemble my mini cakes. You don't even want to know how late I stayed up doing this. I really wanted to get the petit fours assembled and glazed before I went to bed so that in the morning the glaze would be all set and I would be able to add the flower decorations to these pieces. Petit fours often have a filling in between the 2 layers of cake. I just used what I had on hand, which was blackberry jam and a little bit of icing to help hold the cake together. Petit fours can also be filled with lemon curd, caramel, or any other filling you would typically put in a cake. I did not film the glazing of these petit fours because it was getting late and I believe my camera died, but I will share the recipe for petit four glaze that I like to use, and you just drizzle it over the top of the cake, making sure it covers all the edges. I usually like to do 1 to 2 coats of this as it's setting, just to make sure you get a full coverage over the whole cake. On Saturday, I started out by making some royal icing flowers. I piped these onto little squares of parchment paper in different colors of pinks and purples. I wanted to make these early in the day so that they had time to crust up and harden. I knew I would be using these to decorate several of my desserts for the tea party. I honestly just loved sitting here and piping out so many of these little sugar flowers. It was really so relaxing and I loved doing this step. I did not want to film the entire eclair process again, but this was part 2 of me trying again to make the cracklin and the eclairs. My first batch of cracklin was a success, so I was happy about that, but I didn't need to make a second batch so I could have cracklin to top on my new batch of eclairs. For this batch of eclairs, I did almost all of the steps exactly the same, except I chilled the dough for several hours in the fridge before trying to pipe it out with the bag. I also had a better tip for piping the eclairs, and overall these seemed to turn out a lot better than the first batch. They still weren't perfect, but overall I was a lot happier with the result and I was able to use them at my tea party. This is still a recipe I would love to perfect, and editing this video makes me want to try and make these again because I feel like 3rd time's the charm and I could really get these perfect. I used a knife and a cookie cutter to cut strips of the cracklin and round the edges, and then I topped them on my eclairs before putting them in the oven to bake. While the second batch of eclairs was baking, it was time to decorate my glazed petit fours. These had set up overnight, so the icing was no longer sticky, and I had my sugar flowers all set up as well, and so then I got to assembling the petit fours with the flower decorations. I started by using a dot of icing to attach a purple flower to the center of each petit four. I then went in and added piped leaves and some other floral details with my icing tips to the flowers. I added some roses and some hydrangeas. Loved the look of the hydrangeas cascading over the edge of the petit fours. I also really loved the color combination of pinks and purples that I used on this dessert. I thought it was perfect for Rapunzel and the party theme I was putting together. Saturday was one of my favorite days when prepping the menu because it was the day that I got to add all of the details to my dessert. I always love this step because it's so relaxing to get to add these little details, and it just really pulls the whole dessert and theming together. Earlier in the week of my birthday, I had been working on a bridal shower cookie order, so I decided to make a few extra sugar cookies because I had the idea to paint them like the Tangled lantern scene. Painting is such an important element of the Tangled story, and I really wanted to be able to paint the Tangled lantern scene on some cookies. I thought that would be such a fun detail to have at my party. While I was painting desserts, I used some edible gold luster dust mixed with some lemon juice to paint the tangled sun onto my marshmallow lanterns. I really loved adding this detail because I felt like it helped turn these from just yellow marshmallows into actual tangled lanterns, something recognizable from the movie. It was a little bit challenging to paint on the marshmallows because the paint really didn't want to stick to the chocolate, so I had to keep the design really simple and not too detailed because getting those intricate shapes was difficult when the paint wanted to pull away from the chocolate. Since I was really in crunch time this week, I loved having a quick dessert that really added to my menu and table setting. On Sunday it was crunch time, but basically I finished everything that I hadn't had time to make earlier in the week. So I baked my scones. Those are always best fresh day of anyways. I had help assembling my tea sandwiches, making the hazelnut soup, and prepping the drinks. I also hung tangled lanterns from my ceiling over the dinner table and the food table, and I set the table before the party as well. I also just did a last mad dash to clean up my house and get everything presentable for friends coming over to celebrate with me. This is how my house was looking a few hours before my birthday party. I had a lot of work to get done, and I was very stressed. I love a good little table setting and decorating time lapse. I wish I could have recorded more of this process, but at least we have this little time lapse of me setting up for my party. Because this was a tea party, one of the main things I focused on in decorating and setting up for this party was the table decor and the table settings. I probably say this about every tea party I host and table setting I put together, but this table setting was my absolute favorite table setting that I have ever put together. I loved every single detail and how they all looked together. Pulling off this party was a little bit hectic. Up until the week before my birthday party, I felt very accomplished. I had finished all of my DIY projects, and I felt really on top of everything. However, around the same time of my birthday, I also had some wedding dresses that I was altering, and I had a bridal sugar cookie order that I was working on as well. So because I had all of these other constraints and deadlines that I had to get done before my birthday, I was a little bit behind in the food prep and other things as I got to the week of my birthday. I am honestly impressed with myself for being able to pull it off because the morning of my birthday I woke up and I did not have nearly as much done as I needed to. I was only able to pull this off thanks to help from my friends and family. My husband took on making the hazelnut soup and keeping the baby entertained. I had some friends show up early and help me assemble and prep all of the tea sandwiches that I hadn't had time to do anything with yet, and my sister-in-law made some scones, so I was able to have every menu item I had planned on having at my party because I had so many wonderful people helping me at the last minute when I was just completely running out of time. Because of that though, because there were so many moving pieces and things happening at once and people helping me, and I just was running around from place to place, from recipe to recipe, making sure everyone had a job, trying to get everything done, that I did not film hardly anything on Sunday because I was just trying to pull it off. I was just trying to get everything done in time. Alright, can we talk about the theme menu now? Because I had so much fun putting together this themed menu inspired by different characters and scenes in Tangled. So I will start off with the desserts because that's what I had the most footage of filming. So for the desserts, I made some lantern chocolate dipped marshmallows and I painted some tangled suns on those. I also made sugar cookies and did kind of an abstract tangled lantern painting on those. And I made petite fours or petit fours, however you want to pronounce that, and I frosted them with some royal icing flowers in pinks and purples, so very Rapunzel-esque. I had those on my 3-tiered Tangled Tower cupcake stand, and then I also made Tangled Eclairs that you can find at Disneyland and Disney World. So I was trying to recreate the Tangled inspired eclairs that they have at the parks. And of course, at any tea party, you have to have your classic English tea scones. I served mine with lemon curd, clotted cream, and strawberry jam. Also classic, at a tea party you have to have tea. So I chose a blueberry lavender tea for its beautiful bluish purple hue. For the other drink we had at this party, I pulled inspiration from the magic golden flower, which the queen drinks before she gives birth to Rapunzel. For this drink, I had Sprite and I had made floral ice cubes out of mango juice, and then we popped the flower mango ice cubes into the sparkling water to create our magical healing drink. Let's talk about our savory recipes now, because sadly I did not have any footage of making those. They were pretty easy to assemble. Usually a tea sandwich is made up of a spread and then some type of cut bread or puff pastry or tortilla that you put the spread onto. For Pascal, I made chameleon roll-ups. I used green tortillas, pesto, cream cheese, turkey and provolone cheese, and I rolled those up and then sliced them. They looked like little chameleon tails. The green and the swirl was the perfect sandwich to be inspired by our favorite little Pascal. I also wanted to have a sandwich inspired by Maximus's favorite treat, so apple. I made an apple chicken salad sandwich and put that in puff pastry. I think this was the favorite sandwich of the night. I loved it. I would absolutely make it again, and I think Maximus would have loved it too. The last sandwich I made was golden sun egg salad sandwiches. So I used a sunflower cookie cutter to cut out some white bread, and then I made an egg salad filling and I put that in between 2 layers of the bread, and so I had some golden sun egg salad sandwiches because that is such an important symbol in the movie Tangled. With tea sandwiches, you usually want to assemble them the day of your party to make that easier on yourself, because there are a lot of moving parts on the day of the party and things you're decorating for and food you're setting out. I usually try to prep the bread and the fillings the day before, and I cut out my shapes for the bread and make my fillings, and I plastic wrap them really well and keep them in the fridge so that the day of the party all I have to do is put the 2 ingredients together, and then I have nice fresh sandwiches that aren't dried out or soggy. As a crafter, I have always loved incorporating some type of craft activity into my birthday parties, so I came up with the perfect craft to have at the end of my Tangled tea party. We made pressed flower lanterns while watching Tangled, and it was just so perfect and so magical, the perfect way to end my Tangled tea party. I loved all of the lanterns each of my friends created while we were watching Tangled. I loved ending the night with this view and seeing how magical everything was glowing. So much time and thought went into planning this party. I thought of every single detail, from the menu to the decorations to the activities for my guests. I just wanted everything to be immersive and magical and feel like you really got to step into a fairy tale. It meant so much to me to be able to finally bring this party theme to life, and I almost canceled this party because I was so stressed, and with work and everything, I hadn't been able to accomplish as much as I needed to before the day of my party arrived. But I'm thankful to all of my friends and family who helped me pull together everything at the last minute so I could still have this party and celebrate. I feel like my parties have come a long way since I started. I have gotten better at time management and planning and menu prep, but still, with every party, it's not going to be perfect. You are going to have things you didn't get to. You are going to have things that you would have liked to have had more time to put together. But when it comes down to the day of your party, just enjoy the moment. Don't worry about the things that didn't happen or the things you could have done better. Just enjoy the people that you have to celebrate with and the things that you were able to accomplish, because no matter how good you get at planning events, there are still going to be hiccups. There are still going to be things that go wrong, but that doesn't mean you can't fully enjoy the event and what you were able to accomplish. And I'm so glad that I was able to do that with this party. And even though I was sleep deprived and tired, I was able to enjoy this evening with my friends, and it was the perfect way to celebrate my 28th birthday. I love hosting themed parties, putting together magical, inspired menus, doing DIY craft projects, and this party encompassed all of them. If you want to see more of any of those things, please follow my channel. I love making magic here, and I would love to have you along for the ride. We'll see you next time.